I know that we can.
I know darn well we can work it out. Oh, yes, we can. I know we can. Yes, we can. Oh, why can't we if we want to? Yes, we can.
I know we can make it work.
Welcome to Yes We Can, everybody. I'm Pastor Sherman D.Manning. Glad to be coming into your homes, your automobiles, wherever you might be looking or listening. I'm excited about this brand new podcast, this brand new show. But I want you to take a look at a scene. Downtown Los Angeles, actually it's called Skid Row, as most of you know. We were there recently feeding God's hungry children. Take a look at this.
All right, I got it lined up for
Keep the faith. Keep the faith. Come on, darling. Good night.
I'm just stand over here. You got your good line too. Wheelchair.
Can you get that for me?
Can I get it, buddy?
Yes, you can. What am I thinking about? I'll walk.
Yeah.
All my late volunteers, everybody. We're trying to get it done as best we can. And got water already? Okay. You're welcome. Yes, we can. Water?
Come on, get in line, sister. Right down there. I'm running the line. If I see any picture of me, I'm in the actor's place.
There you have it. If you'd like to be a part of helping us to house these homeless brothers and sisters and to feed them, the information is on the screen. You can donate now to make a difference in this city. We've waited on the government. We've waited on politicians. It has not happened. So if it's going to be done, we are going to have to do it. We are the leaders we've been waiting for. If not now, when? If not us, who? I'm excited about my guest today. Listen, I've had other super lawyers on the show. As you know, we've had business lawyers, we've had real estate experts, we've had all of these business-oriented attorneys. And today I have a successful, high-caliber criminal defense attorney. His name is Attorney Tariq Khero. He graduated from Cornell University. He graduated from the University of California, Hastings College of Law. He is one of the top-rated criminal defense attorneys in Los Angeles. He is a super lawyer. Quite frankly, I hope no one watching ever needs his services, but if you are charged with some kind of serious crime, this is a guy that you want to call. Attorney, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Pastor. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for all the very good work you do in the community. As you mentioned before, real social movement and social change almost always, historically, is from the ground up, not from the top down. So you're right in the middle of it, and I appreciate that very much.
Thank you kindly. Listen, I have researched and know a lot about you and was referred to you, and we'll get there in a moment. But for the sake of my audience who may not be familiar with you, tell me who you are.
Again, my name is Tariq Khero. I've been practicing criminal defense in Los Angeles County since 1997. I grew up in Los Angeles. I should say I've been practicing criminal defense in Southern California. A criminal defense practice in Los Angeles almost always includes Orange County, Ventura County, San Bernardino, Riverside. I have 2 cases in Santa Barbara right now. I even have a case in San Luis Obispo. That's been really the sole focus of my practice, and I'm very proud to have done that. I'm proud to represent people who sometimes are at low points in their life. I've been born and raised never to judge someone by the worst day of their life, the worst night of their life, or even by some of their most self-destructive qualities. And so to stand with someone very often when no one else is standing with them actually gives me a lot of pride and humility too. So that's who I am.
What made you want to become an attorney?
Thurgood Marshall made me want to become an attorney. I have a very mixed background. My father was an immigrant from Pakistan, and my mother is half black, half white, and she grew up rather underprivileged in Harlem. And my father grew up a rather privileged person in Pakistan. They met. He is a doctor and she is a nurse. Wow. But from the time I can remember, both of them were very interested and passionate about civil rights. And so that was a conversation we were having in my house from the time I could remember. And one of the things that came out of the civil rights movement, even though I believe wholeheartedly what I just said, that social movement comes from the ground up. The end of institutional racism was not a product of judges or legislatures. It was judges and legislatures responded to what was happening on the ground up. But that said, the civil rights movement did produce a number of attorneys who, in my mind, were heroic people. And first and foremost was Thurgood Marshall. So, lawyers have many different reputations in our world, but when I grew up and I heard of an attorney, I thought of civil rights attorneys first and foremost, and I admired them and idolized them and even romanticized them. So that's kind of how I came to want to do it.
Fascinating background. Your mom and dad. I was stuck there. Pakistan, Harlem, privileged, not so privileged. Unpack that a little bit more for me. What was it like growing up in a household with such mixed heritage? What was that like?
Well, I'll give you even more of a mixed experience as a young man. My father came from Pakistan. He was a doctor. He studied in London, and he came to practice in the United States. One of the reasons he's one of the few immigrants, I think, who left their country almost knowing for certain that he was going to live a standard of life, a lower quality of life by coming to the United States.
Wow.
His family had a lot of money. They had a lot of privilege. Very few people have money or privilege in Pakistan, but those that do have a lot. And he came from that background. Nevertheless, he was, as I said before, he was very interested in social change. The Pakistan that he grew up in, he actually was born in India. It didn't even become Pakistan until he was 11 years old. Except India turned into India and Pakistan, but when he was born, it was India. But the India-Pakistan that he grew up in, he saw a lot of oppression. He saw women treated as second-class citizens. He saw a lot of things he didn't like, and I think he idealized America, and he came here because he saw more freedom here. My mother grew up very poor in Harlem, and she grew up, she's the first person in her family to ever get a degree beyond high school, and that was a nursing degree at NYU. Unfortunately, I have to say that her childhood was really characterized by a lot of addiction in her household and even a lot of abuse. But heroically, she not only got out of that socioeconomically, but she got out of it emotionally, or at least that was her quest in life. So they met in New York, a doctor and a nurse. I'll try to keep this a little short. They moved. He got a residency in Dallas. I was born in Dallas, but I moved to Los Angeles when I was 1. Here's where the more mix of it comes in. And this actually has a lot to do with my practice, so it's not irrelevant. But unfortunately, substance abuse was something that destroyed my father. He was a doctor who essentially self-prescribed himself to death.
So he was a medical doctor?
He was a medical doctor. Okay. That's right. And his life I actually, the last time I saw him, I was 13 years old. His addiction overcame him so much that he essentially abandoned our family. And so not only did I have this educated, non-educated background, this Pakistani, this black, this white background, but my family blew up a little when I was young. And so we grew up in a very working class neighborhood of Van Nuys. But somehow my mother got me into a rich West Side school in Santa Monica. And so I had the other duality where I lived. My home life was very working class, a lot of Latinos I lived around. And then I would come here to the West Side in Santa Monica, and all of my best friends lived in Brentwood and Santa Monica. And for a very long time, and I mean a very long time, all of those fractured experiences and realities that I went through, I didn't understand the value of them. I actually felt lost in terms of my identity. I felt like I couldn't connect with anybody. And it's only been very recently in my life, in the last 10 years, do I now see that what a valuable experience that was. I can connect, and I say this humbly, I can connect with almost any type of person. And it's one of the things that helps me at my job. And I respect and have dignity for almost any kind of person in terms of where they come from or who they are ethnically or socially or economically, because I've been very intimately close to a lot of different types of people. And I've loved a lot of them. And I've seen a lot of people even self-destruct. And I've loved those people too. So it does tie back into my practice in a very broad way.
I'm a firm believer that making sense of our past and of our own history can be such an aha moment for all of us. Recently, I preached a message where I was talking about exactly what you just talked about, which is your history actually gets you ready for your destiny. And so all of those things that you were going through that you couldn't figure out why they were going on actually made you the man that you are now. And of course, as a preacher, I was basing it on the Bible. I mean, the lion got David ready for the bear got him ready for Goliath, and Goliath got him ready for the kingship, and that got him ready to defeat the Jebusites. I mean, all of the stuff that we go through gets us ready for where God is taking us to. And I strongly believe that a lot of what we call trauma in real time is actually training for where we are going to. I didn't mean to preach, but I want to say this to you. Have you done any civil rights cases since you've been an attorney?
I haven't done civil rights cases because I'm a criminal defense attorney, and I focus, my clients are only those who are accused of crimes. And civil rights nowadays means something else. Back in the day, unfortunately, civil rights law and criminal law were intertwined because you could be a criminal based on your race. If you went into the wrong restaurant or the wrong restroom, or if you said the wrong thing to the wrong person, they could criminally prosecute you because of your status. And those are broadly civil rights cases. But now that doesn't happen, at least in an institutionalized way anymore. And so no, but one of the great things about civil rights attorneys is that they get to invoke the U.S. Constitution. And one of the wonderful things about being a criminal defense attorney is that an essentially a constitutional attorney. What I love most about the Bill of Rights is that those who drafted it were all accused criminals at the time they drafted it. So they decided that they were going to construct a country around principles that protected the rights of those accused of crimes. And as a result, the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 8th Amendments, 4 of the 10 amendments, 40% of them are specifically designated to protect those accused of crimes. I don't think that if someone were to create a country right now, they would be so focused on that. But the result is, thankfully for us and our liberty, and for me as a lawyer, is that I invoke the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 8th Amendments all of the time. The U.S. Constitution, more than almost any particular law, criminal defense attorneys go straight to the U.S. Constitution for the authority about why this or that should hold as law. And so that's, while it's not technically civil rights, I I feel like I feel like I'm a part of that a little bit in my practice, and that's a gratifying feeling.
Hmm. Well, I tip my hat to you because I think that as an African American in this country, and I see it every day. My church is actually multicultural. I see it with poor white guys. I see it with Latinos also. There's a lot of injustice that takes place in this country, and I've often, I think I read a book that said the rich get richer and the poor get prison. So mentioning that, what do you think about the state of justice in this country today, so far as criminal law is concerned? And I say that to say this. I was watching Snoop Dogg do an interview the other day. It was actually quite enlightening. I mean, I didn't know Snoop was like that, but he was talking about the fact that he was charged with murder, and I think Johnnie Cochran represented him, and he was exonerated, he was vindicated. But he was talking about the fact that if he did not have the kind of money that he had, that he'd probably be underneath the prison today. I mean, I think it's a sad, sad state in America when money buys justice. I mean, let's face it, if a person is accused of a crime and they get a public defender, not speaking ill of public defenders, I know some good ones, I know some great ones, I know some who were public defenders and ended up going into private practice and are well known now. So I'm not criticizing public defenders per se, but I think anybody knows that if Johnnie Cochran were living, you're going to get better representation from Johnnie than you are a public defender. Number one, they're overworked and they're underpaid, and they don't get the kind of money that the DA's office gets. But what I'd like to know from you, what do you think about a system that is still bent towards giving justice to the wealthy and injustice to the poor?
Well, as you were asking the questions and I was contemplating my answer, you said what I was going to say. The criminal justice system, as is true in many elements of our country, healthcare, for example, getting good healthcare, it's tilted toward those with resources. There is no doubt about it. I admire and love public defenders. I see them work their butts off every day in the most difficult cases, but they are underworked and overpaid. They are overwhelmed.
Yes, precisely.
But there's so many other elements to how resources can help someone who's accused. I am a private criminal defense attorney. My job is significantly easier than a public defender's. Forget my caseload. Forget the fact that they have 10 times as many cases as I do. My clients come to me, and very often, as is true with many people accused of crimes, the basis of their criminal behavior is some untreated psych issue or some untreated substance abuse issue. And I'm speaking very broadly now.
Wow, yes.
My clients come in and I say this. I say, look, if you really want to avoid jail, let's say the evidence is against them, right? There's no doubt. If you want to avoid jail, if you want to position yourself best in this case, you need to get treatment. And very often they say, oh, okay, I'll do that. So they go to a program that they pay for out of pocket. They hire a forensic psychologist that they pay for out of pocket.
Right.
We hire investigators that my clients pay for out of pocket.
Right.
And as a result, I can bring a presentation, I can bring a package to a DA or to a judge that has a ribbon on it with the best doctors in LA saying that this is what this person, not only this is what this person suffers from, but we have developed a treatment plan, we are engaged in that treatment plan, and the person is doing so much better today. None of that stuff would be possible without the resources of my clients.
Right.
And so I don't pat myself on the back when I'm able to do that. I know firsthand that all the difference is the fact that they're able, forget also the high-priced attorneys, but above and beyond the attorneys, all of the other things that make up a good criminal defense typically involve requiring resources that the vast majority of people in the system do not have.
So that leads me to a tough question for you, and forgive me, but this is entertaining, inspirational, educational, and we're just iron sharpening iron. I'm not trying to catch you off guard, but I want to ask you this.
Okay,
if there is a person right now who is charged with a crime he or she did not commit, I mean, 100% they did not do it, but it's a serious felony, and they cannot afford, quote unquote, a high price attorney, but they don't want to lose their freedom forever with a public defender, what would you suggest that they do?
Well, it's a very difficult question to answer because
Yes.
the reality is that if you are charged with a serious felony, you are unlikely to find a private attorney who is going to take that case entirely pro bono. Now, I do take cases pro bono. I've been doing it my whole practice. Well, what I do even more often is I have a sliding scale, and that's absolutely true. But that said, the more serious the case, the more work it requires, and the more serious the case, the more private investigation is necessary. So this is where, if someone said to me, well, what do you do if you have, and I don't mean to be kind of fatalistic about it,
Right.
but if you have a serious medical condition and you have no insurance, what do you do then? It's a very, very sad prospect. I would say that you, well, let me put it this way. I've seen public defenders do great jobs. I would say that person knock on every private attorney's door, show them why they are not guilty. The private attorney doesn't judge people by whether they're guilty or not, but I guarantee you a private attorney would be more likely to take a case on pro bono if they believed that an innocent person was falsely accused. So I would say work your ass off. This is LA. You're going to find somebody, and it's very, very tragic. It's happening every day.
And okay, next question, and that is, what about wrongful convictions? First of all, if you had to take a guess, because this is your area of expertise, if you had to take a guess, what percentage of people do you think in this country are locked up in prison for crimes they did not commit?
I wouldn't be able to say. I could only tell you from my practice, the percentage of people that I represent that I firmly believe are not guilty. Now, again, this is very skewed. So my answer is not going to be the answer in this country.
Right.
The percentage is low. The percentage is low of people who have been falsely accused entirely. However, I represent typically people who are not profiled by law enforcement.
Right, correct.
Who are not, I mean, when you just look, if you remember what happened at the Rampart Division.
Yes.
Where police officers were actually putting narcotics on people. What happens is, here's the way people get falsely accused, and it gets a little more complicated, is that police officers legitimately think that they have a bad guy. And maybe that person even has a criminal, excuse me?
I say correct, I agree.
Yeah, and maybe that person even has a criminal history to justify this police officer's view. And the police officer believes they've committed a crime or thinks they should be off the street, and then that person is wrongly arrested. And once they're in the system with their criminal history, no one will believe that they were rightly arrested. Now, typically, my experience has been, and it hasn't been from my professional experience, it's just from looking at the news.
Right.
And thank God everyone has a cell phone now. It started with Rodney King, but now everyone has a phone, and we've seen those horrible videos of people being shot in the back, of police officers planting guns on people. I think very often when a bad police officer does something like that, and I think there are a lot of good police officers, there's bad ones and good ones.
Right.
When the bad ones do that, they're doing it to cover their butts. They're doing it to cover mistakes that they've made. They're doing it to cover their corruption, or they're doing it because they believe the person's a bad guy and they don't have the evidence for it. And all of those things are horribly unjust. But those who are falsely accused are absolutely, the highest percentage of them are at the lowest socioeconomic end of our society. And again, as a private attorney, that's typically people who don't walk into my office.
Right. Piggybacking off of what you were just saying, and I could be incorrect, but everybody's entitled to an opinion. I remember when O.J. Simpson's murder trial was going on, and my personal opinion was that he probably did it. Maybe he didn't, but I thought he probably did it. And I thought that Mark Furman did what you were just talking about. I thought Mark Furman planted a glove on a man that he thought was guilty to begin with.
Yes.
So that sort of coincides with what you're talking about.
That's right. That is a very, I think, good example. And it also shows you how complicated it is, because it's very reasonable in that scenario to come to the conclusion that the accused is guilty and the police officer is corrupt.
Right.
That both are true at the same time.
Absolutely.
And this is the complexity of our reality. You know, it's not a 30-minute TV show.
Right, right. And so then my next question is this. So you have a guy who was wrongly accused, went to trial with a public defender, was convicted, has come out of the prison, now has served the time for the so-called crime, and now he or she is registering as a sex offender for the rest of their lives for a crime they did not commit. What would you advise that person to do?
Well, again, the question of whether someone did or did not commit a crime from the perspective of the system is the evidence. And that's also where the tragedy lies, because if that person cannot demonstrate with the help of other people, and there's a lot of great post-conviction attorneys who do take things on pro bono when they see that they have a case that's really compelling. But if the evidence, and this is also where, you know, well, if the evidence can't be interpreted in a way that shows you are not guilty, then it doesn't matter legally if you're not guilty. And I'm not saying that morally or ethically.
Right,
I'm not
right.
saying that.
Precisely.
I mean, I'll cry. But
Right.
legally, unless you can demonstrate it, and then once you've been convicted, it's not they have to prove you. You now have to prove yourself innocent. You now have to prove
Yes.
you didn't prove a negative, right?
Right.
And how difficult is that? And I just want to just as an example say that I think that many people who are not guilty of something, in your scenario, in your example, many of them don't go to trial. And
Right.
this is even scarier.
Right.
Because if they see that the evidence against them, and they say, look, if you plead, you get 5 years. If you go to trial and lose, you get 15 or 20.
Absolutely.
So then they will say that they did it in court.
Yes.
And that is tragedy layered on tragedy.
Yes. Yes. But they are frightened. I mean, as a
Yes.
as a pastor and even personal experience, I know that the judicial system can be extremely corrupt. I concur with what you said earlier. There are many good officers who risk their lives every day, do a good job, and
Absolutely.
we salute them. We applaud them. It doesn't take but one bad apple to ruin a bunch. And the fact of the matter is there are some corrupted ones also, and they do a lot of damage along the way. Rampart Division, I'm convinced there's a lot of Rampart Divisions out there in this country taking place even right now. Thurgood Marshall was one of your heroes, so to
Let
speak.
me just quickly say the damage that corrupt officers do is twofold. They do it to the victims and to society, and they also do it equally to police departments and to good police officers.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And that is also another double tragedy because police officers run into very dangerous situations. And here's one of the amazing things that's happened to me as a criminal defense attorney. Can you
hold that story? And
Yeah.
don't forget it and keep it right there because I'm going to come right back in just a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been watching me with one of the best criminal trial lawyers in Los Angeles. And I may butcher his name, but it's Attorney Tariq Khero. And he'll correct me when we come back, okay? He said I got it right. You've been watching, and it's been a very, very fascinating discussion, and I want to bring him back in just a moment. Remember this. You can make a difference in your community. We can do it together. Yes, we can.
I know we can make it. I know that we can.
I know darn well